morning, guys. Today I'm going to show you how to make the most delicious Philly cheesesteak sandwich. It's our favorite recipe for this. And before we make the sandwich, we're going to be going to our butcher shop to pick up meat, to get our steak and get all our meats for the week. So we're just taking you along for the ride. Enjoyed shopping at Ivan's Old Time Meat Shop for a few years now. Maybe it's all the delicious cheeses and meats they sell, or just maybe it's the friendly faces of the Lee family that greet us as soon as we walk in the door. Either way, they are who I turn to when I add hamburgers or meatloaf or roast beef or, you guessed it, Philly cheesesteaks to the menu. Oh, and I can't forget their pizza cheese, definitely my favorite treat. Even more so though, Dan and I both love the fact that going to Ivan's is like taking a step back to a time when things were simpler. A time when you got to know your neighbors and enjoyed a lively conversation over the meat counter. Thankfully, that kind of experience is something we get to enjoy on a regular basis when we make our weekly pit stop. On this particular trip, David actually cut up all of our steak for our Philly cheesesteaks. He trimmed some of the fat and sliced it nice and thin. While most people recommend ribeye for a traditional Philly cheesesteak, we decided to go with sirloin steak, which is more affordable and makes a really delicious sandwich. If you're cutting it at home, you really want to slice it as thin as possible. But I didn't have to worry about slicing it up this time. And if you watch closely, you'll get an idea of how to cut up the steak for your own sandwiches. Alright, we're back and ready to make dinner. Our steak is in the refrigerator, already sliced up thanks to David, and I am ready to prep the veggies for the Philly cheesesteak. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mince up the mushrooms and the garlic, and then we're going to slice up the onions and the peppers. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So we're going to start by mincing up our garlic, and just mince it up as fine as you can. Well, we've got the mushrooms, and I just bought, I believe these were Bella mushrooms, and you can get them pretty cheap at Aldi, pretty affordably. I like to cut the stems off. Now you can just slice the mushrooms if you want to. The reason I mince them myself is because I don't really like mushrooms. But I will eat them in cheesesteak, and my family really likes mushrooms, so, and really minced up, I can't even tell that they're there. So that's why I mince them. I don't know if it's the texture or the flavor. I think it's a little bit of both. I know I don't like the texture of them. You know, when we hunted morel mushrooms when I was a kid, my mom and sister could get me to eat a few of those because they would fry those and they'd be crunchy. But I just don't like the slimy mushrooms. Alright, I think that is good enough, so I'm going to go ahead and stick these in a bowl and set them aside so they're ready to go when we start cooking. You want to slice the onion, not mince it, and you'll just slice it in thin slices. Which we like to do half slices. And we're using a yellow onion. Now a lot of the at the Philly cheesesteak places, a lot of them use white onions. You can use either one. We just use yellow because that's what we usually have on hand. So then we're going to slice our peppers up into slices, thin slices. And then we prefer to just cut it into half slices. So they're a little bit smaller and easier for everybody to eat, including our 3-year-old. Okay, so now that we've got our veggies all prepped, it's time to saute them and get them ready to go in with the meat. So we're going to start cooking and we're going to move to the stove. Now you can use olive oil, but I like to use bacon grease to saute my veggies. It just gives such a great flavor. Alright, okay, so we've got 1 yellow onion. We've got 1 yellow onion and 1 bell pepper. And then I'm also putting in 2 cloves of garlic, chopped up. And then I've got 4 ounces of mushrooms, minced up. And you're just going to stick everything in and saute it for about 10 minutes or until your veggies are tender. So once you get your veggies cooked and they're tender, you're going to set them aside and then you're going to add the meat to the skillet. And your meat should be thinly sliced. And then with the meat, you're going to add half a teaspoon of salt, 1/8 of a teaspoon ground black pepper, and a tablespoon of Worcestershire. Now you can kind of mince your meat up too. We just like to slice it up thin. So we have thin slices of steak. But you can also mince it a little bit to make it smaller and make it go a little bit further too. We'll cook the meat until it's almost done, but it's not quite cooked all the way through. And then we're going to add the veggies back in with it. Now while the meat's cooking, we're going to go ahead and toast the buns. And I like to toast them again in just a little bit of bacon grease so they're nice and toasty when the meat is ready to be put into them. You're going to toast both sides of your buns until they are lightly toasted and slightly crispy. Now you can use any type of bread for this recipe as long as it's a bun. We like to use hoagie buns, but you can also use French bread. You can use ciabatta bread, garlic bread. You can do whatever you want. I personally am going to use gluten-free hot dog buns, but my kids really like these hoagie buns with the sesame seeds, so that's what I'm going to use for this. Now, there's a great debate about the cheese on Philly cheesesteaks. Some people use American cheese, some people use provolone, and some people use Cheez Whiz or generic Aldi Cheez Whiz. I like both, but I'm going to make some with provolone, some with the Cheez Whiz, and some with both. so. But you want to make sure that you warm up your Cheez Whiz. You can just follow the directions on the jar to warm it up so that you can spoon it over your sandwiches. Once your meat is just about there, you go ahead and put your veggies back in. And you'll stir them up with the meat. And let everything simmer until the meat is fully cooked. You can check it with a meat thermometer. But you'll cook it until the meat is fully cooked through, and then you'll be ready to assemble your sandwiches. Once your buns are toasted and your meat is cooked, then you're ready to assemble your sandwiches. Before we put our meat on our sandwiches, I like to put just a thin layer of mayo, just regular mayo. Now I've also seen others do butter or garlic butter, any type of herb butter that would give it extra flavor, but I just prefer good old mayo. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the provolone on in the skillet. You can layer it in the sandwich and put the meat on top of it. We've done that too. But I kind of want it to melt over the meat, but I'm only going to put it on half of our meat mixture because some of us want Cheez Whiz. And I'm going to let that get good and melted. All right, are you ready to try it?
I'm ready. You want?
Okay. Oh my gosh. That was the best. So good. All right.
I give it 2 thumbs up for enjoyment.
Should we feed the kids now?
No.
I'm not sure I want to share it.
We'll give them cereal tonight.
Pretty sure they're hungry though. They're ready. They've been patiently waiting for this. This is one of their favorite meals. All right.